So, welcome back to Conversations with Marléne and Pascale. It's great to be back. And this week we are talking about a big topic, probably one of the most important things in all of our relationships, and that is communication. Before we introduce that, let's introduce ourselves. So I'm Marléne Rose Shaw, therapist, coach, and author. And I help people with relationships. I work with couples and with individuals. And over to you, Pascale.
My name is Pascale Lane. I'm a therapeutic confidence and success coach, and I work with women to overcome difficulties from their childhood to help them to be more confident and successful in every area of their life.
Wonderful. So today we're going to be talking about communication, and we're going to be talking about growing up and how we learn to communicate from our childhood and what we observe in the adults around us and how they communicate. And we're going to look at how we get triggered, sometimes when people don't communicate as well as they could and how that can trigger us. And then we're going to look at some ways to improve communication. So, Pascale, both of us as therapists, communication is a big deal. Tell me what comes up for you when I say growing up and communication. What comes up for you personally and with your clients?
Well, I mean, communication comes up all the time, especially when I was doing a lot of couples work, as I'm sure with you too. Communication is always one of the things that makes a really big difference in a negative way, and in a positive way. I love thinking about communication, and I really love, because I'm into all the childhood stuff. I'm into all of the lessons that we learned as children and how we bring that into our adult relationships, both our intimate relationships and our kind of general relationships. And I think it's always really interesting to explore what we learned growing up from our parents or from our primary carers, which is usually parents, and what we learned about how to communicate, not just in terms of, I think it's really easy to think of kind of like communication difficulties as being like conflict resolution, like how do we overcome difficulties in our relationship? But actually, I always think of communication difficulties as also being about how do we learn to express our emotions? How do we learn to express love? Like if you've got if you, how do you express your feelings? Were you encouraged as a child to verbalize your feelings? And then when we marry that with then how our parents communicated or how we were modeled communication as a child, people often don't realize it, but that is all the stuff we bring into our adult relationships. And that's all the stuff that's playing out over and over again. And I love it when I help my clients to see how they are mimicking a parent's communication style and they don't even realize they're doing it. And you see that light bulb moment go on with them. And I just love it. I just love it so much.
It makes such a difference to everything, doesn't it? Because our communication impacts our relationships, all types of relationships, and our relationships have a big impact on our life experiences. If we can have good communication, good relationships with other people, then we have a support network, we have love, we have fulfillment, we have success, we have all the good things. If our communication is difficult, then we have that sense of being disconnected. And I work a lot with communication with boundaries, because with my individual clients and my couples, but particularly with my individual clients, it's all about setting boundaries and how to communicate those boundaries. And there's a lot about fear in there, I think, as well. I think that people are scared to communicate their needs, for example. in case they get rejected, or in case they create conflict, or they come across as being unkind. So there's a lot to be learnt in how to communicate well. And if we haven't been taught that growing up, or if we've witnessed poor communication, then of course, as you say, we need to notice that and find easier, better ways to communicate. And of course, I see it with my couples that I work with all the time. Every couple has to learn some, change communication. It's not always about being poor communicators. It's having gotten into poor patterns of communication, and it's about noticing that and then practicing better communication to come back together again.
Do you find in your couples work, because I used to find this a lot when I worked with couples, is that you'll often, and I'm not like making a grand sweeping statement, but like you'll often have one person who's got very open communication and really likes to kind of talk about stuff and work stuff through, because that's how they were encouraged to communicate when they were growing up. And then you've got another person who kind of does it really ineffectively, shuts down, not like can't articulate, not like can't find the words, but like for me, I always think never given permission as a child to kind of express themselves freely. And maybe had a parent who didn't express themselves freely. And so you get two people that are coming together, and one just wants to kind of talk it out. And that kind of makes the other person kind of retreat back even more, because like that it all feels very overwhelming and kind of like too much. And then you get into this real negative space of like, how do we fix it now when we've got one person wanting to iron it all out, and the other person just wanting to kind of sweep it under the carpet and just like ignore it.
There's a lot of fear usually going on. The one who wants to iron it all out can't rest until they know they've ironed it out, and then they don't have to worry anymore. And the one who wants to step away from it finds it overwhelming and often feels blamed. It often feels that the desire to communicate is about them being told what they've done wrong. And so you get this sort of unhealthy dynamic, this cycle of them reinforcing each other's behavior all the time. And communication isn't always just about words, is it? It's about behavior. It's about what people do. Absolutely. And it's about, as you say, Goffman said, it's the impossibility of non-communication. You can't not communicate. If you don't communicate with somebody, you're communicating the fact that
is communication.
Yeah. So it's all about that. But one of the things I find most with couples is that when we do get to it, it's about feelings. If we can talk about how we feel, then we can communicate.
Yeah, but that's really difficult for some people. That's really difficult for some people.
Yeah,
job. Absolutely.
Help them with that, is to get to the heart of it. Otherwise, it's lost in translation. I often say to my couples, you're getting lost in translation, because somebody will say something, and because they've had a few arguments before, when somebody says something, the other person interprets it, takes meaning that it's like the last time, when actually it's not like that at all. It doesn't mean that at all. It means something completely different. So that's what we're getting onto now, isn't it? Getting triggered. We get triggered in communication. I've had it happen to me.
Yeah, I get triggered by, I don't get triggered by anger so much. I get really triggered by people stonewalling me.
Yes.
And I mentioned it to my daughter the other day, not in an angry way. But I just said to her, look, I know you're finding this really difficult, but I'm finding the silence and the brush off really hard. So that's not your responsibility to manage my emotions, but can we not just brush off and ignore me, please? because being on the receiving end of it is really horrible.
Mm.
You know, I'd much rather somebody just kind of like shout and swear at me, as we were just joking about before we started recording. I'd much rather you just tell me to fuck off, to be honest with you, not my daughter. I wouldn't appreciate that. I'd much rather just know where I stand than have to kind of guess what's going on. Like, it's hard.
I wonder if it's hard for us as therapists as well, because we're so used to very clear and open communication all the time. We lay it all out there. And so when somebody just doesn't connect, I don't mean a client, I mean sort of in business or, some sort. It's odd. It's odd. But for those people, that might be their communication style is, oh, well, I'll get round to it when I feel able to. And that's fine. That's their communication. And they might find it confronting to have to tell you to fuck off.
Yeah, it's hard. And I mean, like, I would say, like, and I'm always very, very transparent about this. Like, and I just raise it because you've kind of you've opened the gate for me. I think good communication is really, really, really important. But I also recognize in myself that I don't get it right all of the time. And sometimes I need to process my emotions before I can. I tend to retreat under pressure. So I often have to say, look, I've got to work this through. Like, I'm not ignoring you, but I've got to just figure this out before we can do this. And if I met with somebody who, like your example, who needs to be doing it like now, that doesn't always work for me. And I recognize in myself, like, I need to back away, because if I don't back away, this is all going to come out very wrong. And actually, I need to gain perspective, and I need to understand your point of view, and I need to work out what else is going on for me within all of the layers. Because sometimes if I have a very strong emotional reaction about something, as you'll know, right, as a therapist, there's other stuff coming into play that is more than just what's going on in this moment in time. So I do like to be able to figure all of that out. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, obviously I'm a talker, and I like to, as we do, right? We like to kind of get it all out there. But I do also recognize that I don't always get it right.
As you talk, I come on to our third point, really, which it makes me realize, that ways to improve communication. And I think fundamentally, one really good way to improve communication is to be aware of it and to think about it, because that's what you're saying. How am I communicating? What is going on for me here? How is this other person communicating?
Yeah, awareness is key to everything. Like, awareness is like, once we are aware, I always say, like, whenever I start working with a client, I'm always like, look, I haven't got any like magic fairy dust. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. There's no magic here. I am shining a light for you to see what's going on. And once you are aware of what is going on, you will naturally start to do the things that you need to do in order to change it. I will guide you. I will hold your hand. I will support you as much as you want. But you're the one that's doing the work. All I'm doing is just shining a light on the path. Because that awareness bit is really key. Because once we know that that's what we're doing, well, then you have a choice, don't you? If I'm going to stonewall my husband, right, which at the very beginning of our relationship I did a lot, that's why I use it as an example, not because I was trying to punish it, because when he said to me once, "You're punishing me," and I was like, wow, like, Jesus, I am not punishing you. That is not what's going on here. It was an absolute was so enlightening for me. It was such an eye-opener for me. because I understand that it does feel like a punishment when somebody does that to you. And I was like, no, that's not what's going on here. What's going on is that I am trying to process what's going on here. And I need to let you know now, from now on, that that's what I'm doing. I'm not ignoring you or punishing you. I am processing so that I can do this properly with you. Now, that awareness piece gives me chills. That awareness piece is like massive, massive, isn't it? Because once we know that's what we're doing, and people, you know, have got their own ways of dealing with things, rightly or wrongly, but that awareness piece is huge.
It really is. And I think even, you know, at that deep level that you're describing with your husband, and then at a lighter level as well, just to think about how am I coming across? What's my tone of voice like? You know, how am I sounding? Am I using a lot of exaggerated words here? Am I sounding as though I'm accusing this person? You know, am I standing up over them while they're sat in a chair? It's those sorts of things that make a difference as well. So it's noticing our communication at a deep processing level, where we're coming from. It's noticing the meaning we're attaching to things when we communicate, because the communication is really a response to, isn't it? It's always a response to something. You know, a desire, a want, a need, it's a response to that, or it's a response to something that somebody else has said or done. And when we can sort of notice the meaning we've attached to that, then we can think about where our communication is coming from. We can think about, am I coming from a place of fear? Am I coming from a place of expectation? Am I coming from a place of making assumptions? You know, when we can realize where we're coming from, it makes a big difference to how we communicate, because it becomes something that we are managing rather than a reaction to something. It becomes more of a response.
Yeah, and I think if and at the same time thinking about where that came from, thinking about those early messages that we received, and thinking, oh yeah, like I can see that now. I can see where this has come from and how this played out 40 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever. And that can really turn up the brightness for that as well. Oh, isn't it? Isn't it amazing? I love talking about this stuff so much.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I always say to people, if you're having a difficult conversation, make an intention about your communication before you go into the conversation, because making an intention is so powerful. And if we can make an intention, I'm going to go into this conversation with a desire for respect for me and the other person. And we don't have to figure out exactly what that looks like, what words we're going to use, or anything, just to have that intention in our heart, that I'm going to have an energy of respect and an energy of kindness for them and for me. Then universe takes over then and helps us greatly with our communication, because we've got a foundation for it then. And all that sort of fear and anxiety and conflict or whatever it is that's going on, it settles, because the bigger picture is the respect and the kindness.
Yeah, fabulous. Fabulous. All right, great stuff. Great stuff. So how can people get in touch with you if they need help with their relationship and their communication, or anything else?
It'll be in the comments below the video. Just you'll be able to click through to the website and the form to fill in, or my number if you want to have a quick chat with me.
Lovely. And same for me too. Links in the comments below, or just drop me a DM here on Facebook or wherever.
Or DM.
Easy peasy.
I always forget about that one. That's another communication style.
It's a really easy communication style. Yeah, absolutely. Fab. All right, my love. Always a pleasure.
Okay, bye.